Hey guys, I want to welcome you to the weekly Wednesday for the Financial Freedom newsletter, where every week, every Wednesday, we delve into something inspirational, motivational, something excerpt taken from the Financial Freedom weekly newsletter. Wherever you are, if you're listening on Spotify, on iTunes, Google, be sure to click the like, subscribe, share, comment. And without ado, let's get into the show. Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, I'm always in the market for innovative ideas, people thinking outside the box, entrepreneurs, especially in the tech industry, which has had some of the most significant impact in our world today. And I'm happy to bring on Dave. And he's actually the founder and creator of Tweva, which we're going to talk about. It's the first social TV network for small businesses, influencer. He's got a tremendous resume. We're going to be talking about network effects, software is eating world, Mavericks. It's going to be a fantastic conversation. So Dave, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on the podcast, Christopher. It's definitely exciting to be here.
Yeah, I love it. I love, like I said, I love what technology has done, like the Zoom interview, podcasting. So tell the audience, your story, how you got started, what Tweva is, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, sure. So, well, Tweva is a kind of a built out of many different pieces of my life that I finally have put together with doing podcasts. Like, you don't think about how all these connections happened, but they do. So over time, I kind of grew up with a garage full of a lot of different items. My dad was an electrical contractor, and so he would bring home all these different parts from research and development companies that they would kind of throw out. And so I just started very, very early age, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, playing with technology, not really knowing that I'd ever build Tweva in the future, but it's been a long journey. And so recently, me and my partners have built out this company, Tweva, that allows small businesses to finally advertise on TV. But they don't just advertise on TV, they're actually creating the Tweva network in their city with their TV.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I know that, let's, break it down, because, that's a very, it's a very powerful one-liner, but it's like so profound. So, and like kind of how, what is the game-changing idea, like, versus like traditional TV and social networks, tell us more.
Yeah, so I'm kind of leaving the hook there, right? So you're like, well, how does it work? Well, so this is like the first interactive TV network. So think about it. You have a business, right? And you have like a restaurant or something where people are walking into your business. And that TV channel is only one way. It only shows content that the TV channel chooses. And so we wanted to change this up to allow anybody to kind of walk over to the TV and create some content, maybe share a picture of the city hall or maybe a parade that went by and share this content up on the screen. But then it's not just that. It's, small businesses, little ads, it's the weather, it's social media, but it's kind of like a community display / TV channel. But we call it a channel because it's for the city. So like you share content to the screen and it can also be shared to other businesses. It's kind of like a digital bulletin board, but it's scaled by the city.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I think, one thing that's really been interesting is this idea that enabling social, like you can interact, you can talk, you can, thumbs up, emoji, before it was just kind of one way that was fed to us. And now, it's kind of more in. So one thing is talking about, so you talk about, social connection and building relationships in community. How is Tweva doing that, and also within the existing TV technology?
Well, the connections between people, the founder that figured this part out, he had many different restaurants, and so he would he wouldn't add, but he would tell business owners, like small business owners, hey, put your business cards up at the front of my business, where you sit down and ask the host for a seat, and put your business cards up there and try to connect with locals. And so when we were kind of coming up with the Tweva brand and the Tweva name, he wanted to make sure that if you were a small business and you were eating at the restaurant, that you could add your business to the TV and show everybody that you were there. And so he always loved connecting people. He was a people person. He loved connecting people. And we kind of brought that into the technology and said, okay, let's not make this one way. Let's make this something that when you're sitting anywhere, like at a bar or something, you want to share a photo, you can not just show it on a small little screen, but you can add those pictures of your vacation. Like, let's say you just went to the Grand Canyon, and now you're showing the person next to you talking, hey, I just went on vacation. Here's a picture. Now, 3 or 4 seats down the line, someone's going to say, hey, somebody was just at the Grand Canyon. That's cool. I was there 5 years ago, right? And we create these little connections in the community that we've lost because everybody's staring at their phone. So if we can help those little pieces get built back into the community, we kind of rebuild. Grandma and Grandpa used to say, right? It was like that small town feel of, you knew everybody in town. And so this is kind of a way to share those special experiences that people have on a little bit bigger of a display than their phone.
Yeah. It's interesting. You're taking the entire experience and kind of moving it into the TV, which is interesting. I talked to this one entrepreneur. He was using GPS to kind of connect people and like social connections, like networking. One thing that's really interesting, especially in this days, is this idea of network effects. And traditional companies and businesses don't really understand it because they didn't have the internet. But now with the internet, you can actually harness network effects. And tell the audience, harnessing the power of becoming an expert in your industry and using those network effects that Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, Coinbase, they all used.
Oh, this is a big one. So because businesses haven't had, well, I won't say business, I'll say small businesses, because you see the big businesses on TV, right? Everybody knows when you think pizza, you can immediately the top 3 or 4, you're like, well, there's Pizza Hut in there, or there's franchises. But it doesn't really help that small business become the expert. So what we wanted to do is when we create our local Tweva networks in the town, we teach businesses to become the community expert. I mean, most businesses in a town of like 10, 20, 30,000, you'd be overwhelmed if you had to deal with 10, 20, 30,000 customers, right? But most people don't have that much of a reach. So today, instead of you showing an ad on a side of a billboard, and I jokingly say like the Superman pose, like back when we were growing up, you'd see the Superman pose, like, call me, I'm the best person in town. Well, today we've gone to more of like this infotainment where TikTok's like, you look up how to lay pavers in your backyard and you see the guy like skimming through the data. You can see everything in 30 seconds, but it's a little bit of information, a little bit of entertainment. How can we bring that to the small business town, the digital network, and teach people while we're telling them what we do? So it could be something like a plumber, or you remember this old house? I always give this example. This old house. Why don't we have that for our small town? How many roofers, how many contractors have a 4K camera in their back pocket? They could shoot content, right? And they could share that on the TV and quote unquote become that community expert. Everybody knows who they are. So there's a fine line between short form content and long form content. And in between there, that's the Tweva content. It's a couple minutes long, teaches the person, hey, this is a chiropractor in my town. Oh, I see him teaching me how I should sit in my car, or I see him teaching me how I should sit at my computer so I don't have a back problem in 10 years. But when you do have a back problem, guess who you're going to think about? Right? It's the chiropractor. So that's a little bit about how we help the business owner, them being that community expert.
Yes, it's interesting. So a lot of people are listening to this and they're like, okay, so how does Tweva work? Is it is it a platform? Is it a network? How do you get revenue through advertising, sponsors? Tell more.
Yeah, so Tweva is both a platform and a physical network. So we have boxes, they get placed behind TVs, similar to like a small Apple TV. And the business can join the Tweva network, and then they can start showing content for the network. So we drive revenue through some advertising, right? We help business owners with their social media management. And then we also allow people to advertise for very cheap. Like, we want this to be a community thing where you throw a couple $100 in, maybe, I mean, you could start $20, just start with something and you get 200 commercials, right? It's really, really inexpensive because we wanted it to be a community-based thing where the dog walker, like, think about that. Where are you going to find customers? You know, if you go get coffee at the same place every day, why not throw a little ad up there of you walk in some of the dogs that you have and say, hey, for dog walkers, give me a call, or scan the QR code, like what we were just talking about, right? So, you know, we drive traffic, we drive revenue through the advertising, and then also a few other services. You know, we can create content for businesses, but the network is kind of, think about that local, I call it a local TV channel, but it essentially is like a digital network for TVs and small businesses.
Yeah, interesting. And then we talk about, despite TV advertising being dominated by corporate giants, what are some strategies for small businesses to successfully advertise on television?
Yeah, so I was always joking before. It's like you know who's on TV, right? I mean, most TVs have you have 60 minutes of content, and then the first 54 minutes out of every hour is probably programmed content, and then you have that last 4 to 5, 6 minutes time where they just auction that off to the largest bidder, and it's a car company, right? Or it's a pharmaceutical company, or it's a big franchise, a food franchise, and it leaves the little guy out. So what we wanted to do is create a place where though any business can add content to the network by giving a little bit more time to that network. Let's say program content is 56 minutes. We might have 10 minutes, 20 minutes showing local things that are happening in the town. But then we have all this content time left for content for podcasters, right? So video podcasters. Why aren't we showing local advice, local content that's happening and building in the town? And then it gains exposure. You're sitting, you're getting your hair cut, and it's like, hey, who's talking up there? You know, somebody add closed captioning to it. Looks interesting. It's a podcast. You scan the QR code, boom, now you got another follower. So this is really a new piece that hasn't been built out yet, in the world. It doesn't really exist, but it's kind of a learning phase to how we going to get enough content producers to create enough content for an hour every day, right? At least from open to close. So it's quite the feat. It's quite the feat to do.
Yeah, and talk about what ways local business can establish themselves as experts in their field through branding. I'm curious that it's really got me thinking, like this idea of like social media, but it's more local and more like curated, and I'm just how to get people onto the platform.
Yeah, so this was kind of like what I was explaining a little bit before. So your brand, it's becoming that community expert, right? So TV is a little bit different than you would say on your phone or on Google. So Google, you're going to go to Google and say, I need a plumber, or my back hurts, I need a chiropractor. TV is more passive. So you're watching TV and you see something and you go, okay, cool. And then you see it again. Okay, I got it. And you keep seeing it through repetition, and eventually it's more like passive advertising. That's just something that small businesses really don't have access to because it is so expensive. So the branding comes in here where you produce content, let's say for the chiropractor, right? This is how you should sit in your car. If you're watching the kids' soccer game, don't sit in this cheap chair. Make sure, if you have a bad back, sit in this type of chair. Constant content equals the brand, right? And you keep seeing that guy's face. And the cool thing is, I think the coolest thing is that when you go to the local restaurant, you're most likely going to see him at some point. It's not so out of reach where some of the big lawyer firms, the nationwide law firms, you'll never see that guy because he's too separated. His bill for advertising is millions of dollars. But Tweva allows that small business. So you could be having pizza, you could be having linguine and clams over here, and you're like, hey, that's the chiropractor. I've seen you everywhere on all these TVs. And that's, again, building those local connections, building the local brand. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
That neat. It's like a new way to do it. It's so exciting.
I love that. One how the a you know the this current wave, this hype is cycle is now talking about AI, and with AI being so complex, how can small businesses take advantage of AI and interact it with Tweva, all of that.
Have you played with a little bit with Chat GPT yet?
Oh yeah, I mean,
It's crazy, right?
yeah, it's awesome.
It's it's amazing. You got to spend a little time in there. You got to learn the prompts, and it does take a little bit of finessing of the prompts. I've seen these. Oh, download to 10,000 prompts. I don't think most business owners have time for that. So we've integrated a little bit of AI into our technology, and it helps small business in multiple ways. I'll talk about mine first, and then I'll explain a couple of little ways. But what we do is we can help businesses advertise with a little bit of AI, so we can make some connections to where customers may be eating, right, or where they're going to the doctor, and where this matches your customer profile. But we also do a little bit in the social media world too. So along with the TV network, we help businesses with their social media management. A lot of people are kind of overwhelmed. What do I write about today? I wrote 5 things this week. How do I write another thing next Monday? And so we kind of help business owners with subjects and keywords and all these things using some AI. So that's a really good way to benefit. And then, so that's on the Tweva side, but on the other, like on a small business side, whatever you're doing repetitiously, you have to think about this. Like, your competition is at some point going to take that AI jump, and you'll either be working a couple of extra hours or you'll be left behind. So at some point, you have to look into what are the processes that I'm doing every single day that are very repetitious, and figure out a piece of software. I mean, Chat GPT is this public, I would say it's probably like not filtered, right? Like, it's not really super clean. I mean, you can get some errors in that data. And so it leaves the AI piece open to a lot of additional companies that do it a lot better. They use, let's say, the brain piece of it, but they're very specific. So there's like an email marketing side, and they'll say, well, okay, if you have 1,000 people on your list, this one person likes to open his email at 8:26 in the morning, then we're not going to send the email out until 8:20. And you'd think that, okay, that's not that big of a deal, but loading someone's email box with 30 items the night before, 50 items before, how much time is he going to spend on those emails? Right? But if he cleans all the emails up and then boop, there's one when he's looking, he probably will spend double, triple, quadruple the time on it, which is, you got to put that into your open rate, your view rate, things like that. And that's just one piece. That's emails. Then you have appointment setting, you have calculations of your bills, and all these different pieces. Really, don't you think that it's really becoming a huge part of the next wave of business?
Yeah,
right?
it's fascinating. Because there's, Peter Diamandis, he talks about, well, I mean, there's, Mark Andreessen, the software is eating the world. We've seen that through, Amazon, Google, all these companies, Airbnb, all these. And then what's interesting is with AI, everybody's worried about AI is going to replace their job, but it's not going to replace it. It's just going to create new jobs. And then the people that are going to succeed are the people that know how to use AI. So it's like a tool, like,
Yes.
Knowing how to code and, market and social media. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it gives you an additional person that's almost like an extension of you to go do some of the things that's like, if you can do 80%, now you can do 110. And at least it's giving you that. I know for titles or for writing or creating content, it's a big help, because you have to, how am I going to word this? And it just gives you that first piece, and you're like, that's the spark I needed. Okay. And then you can move on,
Yeah.
But it's very powerful. I think you'll see a lot more AI companies. I follow a couple of these startup, emails, and it was wild. The money that went into AI, I don't know what you call it. Like, it's not segmented, it's really AI based startups. I think was 80% of the startups that got money in the market that's kind of weird right now we're all AI, some sort of AI piece. So I think if you're talking about creating an efficiency in a business, that's the AI piece. I mean, we say AI, but it's more efficient, right? So I think the investors are starting to say, okay, well, if I'm going to invest in this piece of technology, can it be more efficient with a learning aspect to it in the next 10 years? And that's the ones they select. If they got 5 to select today or 10 to select, they go, okay, give me the top 3 that have AI pieces. Let's go research those.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like
Yeah.
it's like what the calculator did for math. You just input it in, and but you have the idea. You know how to solve the problem. It's just like a shortcut. It's like a tool. So,
Oh, I never thought about that. Yeah, right. Yeah. Imagine the calculator came out. Everyone's like, you're going to lose your jobs. No, you're going to work twice as well, not work twice as much, but you could if you wanted to, right? You probably take twice as much of business and you don't have to sit there and do long form math.
Yeah, exactly. And
My
then
kids show me some of the stuff they're doing in school. I'm like, you have to do that still? Wow. Like, I thought that would have been replaced by now.
yeah, school districts are banning AI, and still.
We're going to
Um,
teach you how to code over here. So, oh my goodness.
how can people contact you, follow you, check out Tweva, and reach out to you?
So we're all over the social media platform. We picked our name to be very unique. So, just search Tweva, Tweva. We want to be, it fits right in Google, Yahoo, Twitter, Tweva. Hey,
Yeah.
we tried to fit a really cool name. So it's everywhere. But we also have like a little landing page set up. You can go to connect. And if you're an influencer or a content creator, I throw both of those in there now because it's really, some people are just creating content for businesses, and we love them because we need a lot of content, right, for the network. So if you create content, we want to talk to you. And if you're a small business owner, we want to talk to you. If you never could advertise on TV, definitely give us a call because we're building everything out in your town, and let's get going. Connect.tweva.com is the best way to connect.
Yeah. And for all the audience out there, let's thank Dave for coming onto the show, and really fascinating conversation. I always love these, tech entrepreneurs, and all of Dave's resources will be in the links in show notes. And with that, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
I hope you really enjoyed that wonderful, inspirational, motivational piece. Again, wherever you are listening, if you liked it, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're on everywhere: Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, Audible. And without much ado, be sure to thank this show's sponsors, and we'll see you next week.